Time now for Focus. Today we're looking at nuclear power here in France, which produces 3/4 of its energy through nuclear power. French energy firm EDF, largely owned by the government, has decided to extend the life of nuclear power plants. But such a project is very costly and there are concerns over safety. France 24's Jonathan Walsh and Luc Schrager report.
The Saint-Alban nuclear power station is getting a massive makeover. 4 years of construction and a €1 billion bill are well worth it to the plant's manager. He needs to keep the 2 reactors on stream longer than planned.
What really determines the lifespan of a nuclear reactor is the quality of both its core and confinement shell. We're continuously monitoring these 2 vital elements. It makes sense to extend the life of our 2 reactors here in Saint-Alban. The infrastructure is in great shape. With these additional investments, we guarantee absolute safety.
Saint-Alban isn't alone. EDF's embarked on a modernization program of all of France's aging nuclear infrastructure. It means plants designed to last 40 years will operate as long as 50 or even 60. It's a titanic project the public utilities calling Grand Carénage, or the Great Streamlining, and it's hoping to obtain the green light from France's nuclear watchdog by 2019.
This here is Unit 1's last resort diesel engines. We're building them now, and they'll be operational by the end of 2018. These are nothing more than giant energy generators that can bear the brunt of massive environmental disasters, earthquakes.
In the wake of Japan's Fukushima nuclear disaster, every single reactor is now subject to increased safety measures. EDF estimated the Great Streamlining was going to cost €50 billion, a price that's now swelled to twice that. On the day we came to visit, a group of students were getting a guided tour. They're all from the School of Mines, a prerequisite if you're looking for work in the nuclear sector. Many think France is doing what's needed to avoid a serious incident.
We hope such an accident won't happen. I believe everything is being implemented to prevent it. I'm not worried about a nuclear disaster.
Not all of these budding engineers are convinced, though. 75% of France's energy is nuclear, a total that needs to come down to 50% by 2025, an obligation raised by energy transition law.
In my opinion, nuclear power is a source of problems in the long term. We don't really know how to reprocess nuclear waste or decommission nuclear plants. We have to come up with solutions. There are plenty of alternative energies.
Before such long-term issues come into play, however, there are far more pressing concerns.
Nous demandons à tous d'observer une minute de silence.
6 years on from Fukushima, the critics of atomic energy are more vocal than ever. They invited a Japanese delegation to Paris for this demonstration, and all paint an alarming picture for French nuclear power.
Recently, it's been revealed that nuclear plants are suffering significant defects in the cores and steam generators, components built by the very same company and which are in use both in France and in Japan.
Indeed, cascading anomalies have been detected since 2015. A third of reactors have had to be shut down and checked before coming back online. It costs an already overextended EDF €1 billion each time, and the voices of critics are multiplying.
French utility company EDF must finally admit that repairing these nuclear plants is going to be way too expensive. It's a threat to the company's financial health. EDF doesn't even have the technical ability to repair these plants. The truth is that there are enough defects that cause a nuclear disaster in France. The only way to prevent this is to stop dumping money in these worn-out plants and to invest in renewable energies.
For EDF, that's not even the worst of it. The Flamanville EPR was meant to be a showcase example of nuclear reactor tech. Instead, it's been an industrial nightmare. Late in 2014, a defect found in the reactor's steel containment structure meant it was too fragile. The financial stakes were colossal, but that wouldn't prevent the Nuclear Safety Board shutting it down if it thought it necessary.
Once the investigation is over, if we believe we have to pull the plug on the Flamanville EPR reactor, then this is what we'll do. The plant will either have to be replaced or repaired, but it's still too early to do so. We will decide by the end of summer.
The containment structure was manufactured by Creusot. An Areva-owned business, it handles not just orders for French reactors, but EPRs sold abroad, meaning there's no room for doubt. An inquiry at Creusot led to some explosive findings that hundreds of units had been fraudulently approved.
We've witnessed a certain number of irregularities during the construction process. Some have the attributes of falsification, a deliberate cover-up. We must go over thousands of technical documents spanning over decades to make sure there aren't other malfunctions.
Areva and EDF were warned as early as 2005 over irregularities at Creusot, according to recently publicized correspondence. Both public utilities, though, upheld their orders, specifically for the Flamanville EPR, and both have now seen a somewhat toxic image of nuclear power tarnished yet further.
Now, it's just worth noting in the introduction and in the report itself, we spoke about France producing 3/4 of its energy through nuclear power. It is, in fact, 3/4 of its electricity, and that was pointed out by my guest, Michael Schneider. Michael, thank you very much for pointing out that mistake. You are an international analyst on energy and nuclear policy. First of all, I'd like to ask you about this idea, then, of extending the lifespan of reactors. What do you make of that? Does it make sense?
Well, you know, the average age of the French nuclear fleet is now standing at some 32 years. Think back of a car that is 32 years old. I mean, that's a totally different technological, time. We have had several technological revolutions since. So you can replace the tires, you can replace even parts of the motor, but you cannot replace the actual body of the car. And it's very similar in a nuclear reactor. You can only upgrade to a certain extent. And I think that we have come to a point where it would actually be pushing innovation in limiting lifetimes. That's what a lot of other countries are actually doing, and moving into, other technologies that are technologies of the future.
So why is France so behind then, especially when you consider that François Hollande, the president, made a promise of actually, what did he say, that wanted to reduce France's nuclear energy dependency from 75%, I should say electricity, to 50 by 2025. What's actually been done towards
it's
that?
Law. People forget. It's actually legislation. It's not only a promise by Hollande. It's actually in the legislation right now. So the problem is that the politicians didn't really take up their responsibility here. And it's not enough to come up with a target. You have to prepare the path. And preparing the path means you have to decide on criteria, when to shut down which nuclear power plants, according to what? Age? But overall safety, earthquake sensitivity, there's many criteria. This debate didn't take place at all during the presidency of President Hollande. And I think there's the big problem. It's a problem of governance of the nuclear sector.
And is it partly explained by the fact that also the power of the unions and the labour force? Because we are going to see Fessenheim close, apparently, by April 2020.
Nobody knows yet.
That's what the government has said, that they've signed the paperwork at least, but of course by then there will be another government, so who knows if that will actually go through. But the current government saying that will happen only once a new reactor at Flamanville is running.
There you go.
So really they're just replacing one with another? Is it that simple? And so they're not shutting any down?
Well, here's the beautiful illustration of the problem of governance. Is this actually government policy, or is the nuclear operator deciding here? And what we're seeing is that the decree that has been published basically sticks to the limit of installed nuclear power generating capacity and says, well, if there's no new capacity coming online, we don't shut down old capacity. So if the new capacity doesn't come online, and your piece showed that the safety authorities might actually say it's not safe, so we're not letting it come online, what then? Then, Fessenheim would continue to operate for several years? Nobody knows. But that's at least the legal situation at this point, and it lacks, political will to actually implement, a transition policy.
Now, what about the fact that it's mostly owned, EDF, the energy firm that runs France's nuclear reactors, mostly owned by the government? Is
Absolutely.
Is that part of the problem? And it should
well, you could say it's over 80% owned by the government, so the government should, at least, massively influence what this policy is. And the government has shown that other people are actually making the policy and not the government, the politicians. And that's a big problem, and it has been a problem for many years in this country, that there is actually not politicians that are competent and that are willing to take up the responsibility to say, we want this or that energy policy, and it means we have to take certain steps in order to implement that policy.
Well, soon there will be another government. We'll have to see what they do. Thank you very much indeed for your time and your analysis, Michael Schneider. That's it for Focus. I'll be back at the top of the hour. Stay tuned.